Hello and welcome to the April 6th edition of the FloTrack podcast. My name is Lincoln Shrike, coming to you once again from my home in Austin, Texas. The same is true for Gordon Mack. Gordon, how are you today?
Doing good. Another day, another week. Keep grinding here in the trackless, sportsless, basically economyless world.
The email is still active, fortunately enough. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, your criticisms. Gordon, we got a text from Kevin this weekend saying a couple people reached out to the email saying, when was Shoe King dropping on Netflix? They couldn't find it because we told them it was going to be on Friday. I think we fooled some people.
Yeah, here's some of the emails we received from people. Hello, just finished your podcast reviewing the Nike docuseries and noted Netflix did not add it to the lineup as was intended on April 3rd. Any feedback?
Mm-hmm.
I won't call who that was. And then another one responded, any update on when we should expect the Netflix documentary? I thought I understood you say it would be available on Friday, April 3rd. I haven't seen it yet. Keep up the good work. So,
well, I just would encourage those people to keep searching and make sure you type it out. It's Shoe King, miles, millimeters, and mischief. Make sure you have all of those words spelled right every day.
Yeah.
Just search it. Maybe reach out to Netflix, just ask them when that's going to be dropped.
Yeah. For those who are just tuning in today's episode, we did a very fun episode on April 1st, 5 days ago, where we made up a fake documentary called Shoe King. If you need some entertainment for an hour, I suggest you listen to that or watch that pod because we go down crazy rabbit holes on coming up with this fictitious documentary. But yeah, right. It was fun to. It was fun to. The last time I talked to you was when we were making up fake stories about Nike, so I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, the best April Fool's joke is one that's believable, and that certainly was believable. I would have hoped that when people saw the image of a shoe set in front of a jail lineup card that they would have, or like those height things, that they would have realized that that was fake. But people want to believe anything these days, and everyone's a little stir crazy, and everyone's binging every show that they never previously had time to get to. So people were excited for it. I would have been excited. I mean, if that was a real documentary, especially the way we described it, I mean, that would have been that would be very, very entertaining.
Yeah, we did have a little bit of news that happened over this past weekend, right? Did you see that? Wilson Kipsang, the former world record holder in the marathon, was arrested for not keeping curfew. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, it's been a tough couple months for Mr. Kipsang. I've lost track of time, but previously he got busted for, oh gosh, hold on. I'm gonna have to look. What happened with Wilson Kipsang a few months ago? Did he have a positive? He was banned. I'm sorry, I gotta read this. What? Oh, it's aware about failures and tampering. That's right. So that was back in January, and now in a totally different call, totally different story. He's breaking curfew during the pandemic. Our man Wilson is having trouble following the rules.
In a way, it's another aware about
fun. Yeah. Right. The guy can't keep track of his time or the rules or where he needs to be. People say he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's Wilson Kipsang at all times right now. I don't know. I mean, that seems like a little unnecessary to publicize that, but I guess he's famous in Kenya and that's going to make news. So it'd be like LeBron James, I don't know, trying to play basketball with a bunch of guys and that would make news here. So I don't know. I don't know. I kind of just ignored that story, but it's something. I guess it's track related. When that qualifies as the biggest piece of news, that nothing is going on. That is literally the biggest piece of news right now in the track.
Yeah, we can't ignore that story. We need that story. That story is our headline of the week in times like this. So
yes. Hopefully there's other stuff going on this week. Hopefully it's positive instead of, I guess you call that. But we've reached April. It's Florida Relays Week. I've heard there's not going to be any Florida Relays this week. I don't know if you've heard that, but I think the meet is canceled.
Yeah, well, the meet would have happened last weekend, but
Okay,
for we're talking about Florida relays this week,
there
so
you go.
that's the
There
plan.
you go.
Yeah.
I can't keep track of schedules. Anyways, we've done enough intro here. I thought of a topic for today's show, and it would be some of the biggest, maybe the biggest, what ifs of the last few years in track and field. Maybe if some outcomes had been changed, if some injuries didn't happen, if some athletes would have made one choice for an event as opposed to another. Whole bunch of things that I thought it'd be fun to run through and kind of debate, since we are, well, basically we have all this time for hypotheticals. I mean, we've never had time previously to just discuss all these weird scenarios, but now we have that time.
Yeah, I live for hypotheticals. I love thinking
Mm-hmm.
about what if, what would
Yeah,
change, what not change, and yeah, I like not thinking about what actually happened. I like thinking about what could have or won't happen. So
exactly. That's why I thought of this. I was thinking of you when I did it. So my first one: what if Wade Van Niekerk had not blown out his knee in a rugby match in late 2017? What would be the outcome? What would he have run a faster world record? Would the world record be under 43 seconds? How many matchups between him and Norman would we have had thus far? Would he be challenging Lyles in the 200? There's a lot there. What are your thoughts in that regard if Wade Van Niekerk had never had a catastrophic injury?
so thinking about this, I don't know if we would have seen a better Wade Van Niekerk, but I do think if he was on the track in off year 2018 and on the track during the 2019 World Champs, he would have, like you said, pushed our current top 200-meter runners and our current top 400-meter runners. Uh, the 400, I feel like wouldn't have been affected as much based on what happened in the 400 because we didn't get to see the Michael Norman throw down an incredible fast time at the end of 2019. I think Wade Van Niekerk probably would have won the 2019 title because Stephen Gardner ended up winning it. I think Van Niekerk healthy would have been heavy favored. It would have been a Van Niekerk versus Norman setup, and then with Norman not being healthy, we would have just saw Van Niekerk run away with it over Stephen
Right.
Gardner. So the 400, I feel like the result would have just been kind of like, okay, yeah, Van Niekerk wins over Gardner. I think the 200 would have been the interesting one because I think it would have pushed Lyles to go even faster, in my opinion. I think there was really no one in Lyles's, you know, wheelhouse all of 2019. He dominated every time he ran the 200. I mean, Norman challenged him a bit in the Diamond League 200 a couple times, but I think if Van Niekerk was in there running consistent 19.8s, 19.7s, and Lyles knew he had to show up every single time, I think we could have maybe seen. We for sure would have saw a faster Lyles at the World Championship level because let's be honest, Lyles kind of just like jogged his 200 final because he just was just so much better. Um,
I don't know
maybe
if he
we would have
jogged it. I
saw.
don't think he has a good. Yeah, I don't think he had a good race. I think he had to fight for that win. He just didn't have a good race.
Yeah,
It just wasn't a good
yeah.
time. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah. By jog, I mean he didn't need his best. He didn't need to be his best because
right.
the competition just wasn't there. He didn't need to show up the way he would have to show up for like a Diamond League race against North. He just kind of was like, okay, as long as I can get through it, I'm 95% chance I'm going to win this race. So,
Yeah.
but I think if fresh Van Niekerk, or not fresh, but like a healthy Van Niekerk was on that start line, Lyles is going to go to that start line in an entirely different mindset, and maybe we would have seen maybe a 19.5 in the world final, which would have been more fun, I guess, more entertaining. So I just think the what if would have been a faster Lyles. That's what I think the what if would have been.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have impacted the 200 that much. I threw the 200 in there. Obviously, he ran that distance and is a pretty solid 200-meter runner. I really was thinking it more through the prism, obviously, of his primary event being the 400. I think we would be having more conversations of Niekirk as the greatest of all time over even Michael Johnson, just because he would probably decent chance he could have another 400 world title from 2019, since it ended up being quite attainable without Norman running away with it. Still a fast time because Gardner ran 43:48, but I just think this obviously takes away a big part of Van Niekerk's legacy. He's going to miss 2019, obviously miss 2019, and then 2020 is a wash. And in 2021, he's going to be 28, 29. He may be past his prime. And that's why with blowing out his knee, he could have jeopardized the last, 2-3 years of his prime. And you add in, people are talking positively about the pushback for him, the pushback of the Olympics as a thing that allows him to get healthier. Listen, he blew out his knee in 2017. He should be good to go. And he had a couple good tune-up races in South Africa before kind of racing stopped and the sports world stopped. But I think it's actually a negative thing. And Kevin has voiced this on his podcast, that he's just had so many lost years of what would have been the tail end of his prime. I think blowing out this knee prevents him from being the greatest of all time. And Michael Johnson, yes, I know he has his world record, and he's run very, very fast, and he's a great 200 runner, just like Michael Johnson was. But I think that's what's going to be the ultimate tale of his career. When you combine the injury and the postponement of the Olympics, this kind of takes away his chance at being the greatest 400-meter runner of all time. Now, he had the greatest 400-meter race of all time, but I just think that the full body of work is not as strong as Johnson's.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know if I guess technically, yeah. I think that he really only misses out on a 2019 championship run, but in a way, he is also missed. You got to think that if he has a fresh knee, that he's going to look at 2019, 2021, 2022 as like more prime. He's still going to have to work his way back into top 3 potential level. So yeah, I don't think winning 2019 would have made him the greatest of all time. It would have been winning 2019 and then going on a run and winning 2 of 3, maybe of the next 3. So then you would have to be like, yeah.
I mean, listen, there's a chance he still can. Like, he could be good at 29. He could be great at 29, and he could be back to his level. I don't think he'll ever break his world record again, but he could, if he's in the below 43.5, he can still win world titles, and there's still a chance for him to I guess, surpass Johnson if we're having a supposed race between these two guys at different eras. But to me, I think that's what the injury ultimately will do is prevent him from reaching that mountaintop. All right, so let's move on.
I do have one thing. One thing. Okay, go ahead. One if about we might have potentially seen a relay with Caster Semenya and Wade Van Niekerk in a mixed relay 4x4.
Yes, for a multitude of reasons, that did not happen in 2019. Not mixed with.
Would we have seen them run
losing her case to Cass? Yeah, go ahead.
Could we have seen them run that? Was it the 2x400?
They could have been the greatest. I mean, when that they would have dominated that. There's little doubt to me that they would have dominated the 2x2x4, of which. What did the team of Donovan Brazier and somebody else win that? I can't even remember. World Relays last year so long ago, and honestly, who cares about a 2x2x4? But I know. Whenever that event was announced, I picked Semenya and Van Niekerk as my dream team there, and absolutely. I mean, right now we're all talking about the event we missed the most, the 2x2x4, and of course the mixed 4x4 relay. Everyone is like, "What am I going to do 2020 without those events?" It's devastating. So
I know that it's a circus show. Those events,
yeah,
circus act.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those they would be the stars of that. Okay, I'm going to move on to my next what if. What if Justin Gatlin didn't choke in the Beijing 100-meter final at the World Championships in 2015? So by that I mean, what would we say about him and about Usain Bolt if he would have won that world title in 2015? How would that have changed the trajectory of his career and Usain Bolt's?
It would have it would have been a crazy internet reaction. The amount of anger that people would have with the poster child Bolt losing to the two-time convicted drug offender would have just like people. It would trigger so many emotions from people who always say the phrase "sanctity of the sport" or hashtag "clean sport" or just
Mm-hmm.
all the like ruining the sport. The phrase using the word "the sport" in quotes as a phrase. Uh, as a bystander, I would have relished in a Schadenfreude of the fans being very upset because I think that they put a little too much weight into certain athletes uh, performing poorly or certain athletes performing well as a means of the sport being in the right place. Like for some reason, they
Right.
think Bolt winning in 2015 is going to save the sport, and Justin Gatlin winning in 2015 is going to ruin it. When really, both scenarios, the sport stays exactly the way it is, in my opinion. So I would have loved it from a fan point to see everyone get mad because I like seeing people get mad over something so stupid like who wins a 100-meter race.
Right.
But I don't. I think in the mainstream, the legacy of Bolt wouldn't have been that
Right.
ruined because I mean he didn't do well in the 26. Wait, it wasn't until 2017. What was the year when he lost? 2017, right? That's when it
Yeah.
ended, right? So I
Right.
think he's allowed. Like no one remembers when Bolt false started and Johan Blake won. Like people don't think about that. I think the Bolt legacy with that loss wouldn't really be. People would just choose to ignore it. I think Bolt's legacy
Yep.
wouldn't have changed. Like we would look at Bolt here on April 6th of 2020 in the exact same light with a loss in that race or with a win in that race. I do think it would look at Gatlin in a different light. It would put more. I think it just the what if it just angers people. That's all it would do. It would just get people mad, and it
Mm-hmm.
would get people
Yeah.
mad with no like it just like all it is just gets people emotionally mad where they tweeted about it and then they go on with their day. That's all it would do.
Well, I
It wouldn't have
remember
an
at the
actual
time being,
effect.
yeah, I remember the time being in Beijing, and people were writing when the matchup was, because that season in 2015, Gallon had been running incredible. He had run, I think, 974 at pre. I mean, he was just raring to go from the beginning of the season. And obviously, he was being very much criticized, both in the US and abroad. There were things like meets didn't want Gatlin running there. Everyone's called him a two-time drug cheat, which is fair. He's served 2 bans. But there were articles in the lead up to the race. It was like basically a good versus evil type of a matchup. And it was, people were pinning it as the race to save the sport. If Bolt wins, the sport comes out looking good and pure. And if Gatlin wins, it's the complete opposite of that. And in the race, Gatlin should have won. He had a lead, and then he, as he says, his arms got flaily, whatever that means. I mean, he kind of lost control. I think he lost his focus. It would have been really interesting to see some of the horrible takes, and I think that would have been the primary thing coming out of that. Would have just been the PR crisis of track riders not really knowing how to handle it, and people making excuses for why Bolt would have lost. You're right in thinking, I don't think that it would have tarnished Bolt's legacy. In a way, I almost feel like it was good for Gatlin to not win, because people saw some human side of it. If he would have won, it was like the evil guy winning, even though I don't think that's necessarily deserved. But yeah, I agree. I don't think that would have hurt Bolt's legacy. Maybe he retires sooner if he loses that. I have no way of knowing that. Maybe he just goes to Rio and then calls it a career after that, because he's going to follow up in 2016 and try to get back on top if he would have lost that 100. but we saw the effects. I mean, it just swung the pendulum right back into the way of Bolt. I mean, not only does he dominate the 200 a few days later in Beijing, but he once swept in Rio with minimal competition. With minimal, he wasn't nearly at his best, but I think all the confidence, all that momentum carried over into Rio, and he, like I said, wasn't in peak form, but he still won double gold. So I think it changes the 100 significantly if Gatlin wins. I think there's a chance Gatlin goes on a little run and carries that confidence, knowing he had beaten Bolt and was the king of the 100. And we may be talking about him winning the Olympic title in 2016 if he had not lost his focus. But at that point, Bolt knew he had Gatlin in his back pocket, and that carried over to Rio. And took Gatlin a while to come back on that, and he had to beat a very much not at full strength Bolt in 2017 to kind of get the last word. But the sport would have lost its mind if Gatlin would have won that race.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so weird how they put all of this just track media and even and track fans just love to talk about everything except the actual event. They love to talk about, this is what you need to do to make the sport better, or this is why the sport sucks. This is what's great about the sport, or this, it's this person winning means this. And it's like, as opposed to just being like, all right, let's break down the race. And, it's like in the NBA, right? In the NBA, everyone cares more about potential free agency moves than the actual game, right? Because
a lot of people do, at least, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people do, because it's more fun to think about, like you said, hypotheticals. What ifs? Ooh, if Steph Curry teamed up with LeBron James, imagine that, Whereas just talking about Steph Curry scoring 30 points against the Kings, it's like, who cares? And I think the same way we do that in track, where we love to dwell in the controversies, the doping convictions, just like all these side storylines, and not just dwell in like, okay, the race matchup, who won, and like why they won or why they lost, And I understand, like, obviously doping isn't good for the sport. Like, I'm not trying to say that, and like there needs to be a conversation about it, but I think sometimes that conversation is just brainwashing people or blinding people into that's all they think about, and I think they kind of get carried away, and that's my opinion. I mean, but I know a lot of people disagree with me on this. A lot of people think I'm crazy to think that that Gatlin winning is not that big of a deal, and some people think, "Are you kidding me? It's the biggest deal ever," because there's so many clean people out there who are now going to be drawn away from the sport because they can see a convicted doper succeed, and I just think that, like, hey, like, life is not fair, and there's a lot of things that happen that we can't create a world that's a utopia of like it goes exactly how I planned. And every time you try to force a utopia world viewpoint on the sport, it's gonna you're gonna be set for disappointment, because the right people aren't always gonna win, the wrong people aren't always gonna lose, and you're just gonna set yourself up for disappointment. That's what I think.
Hey, you have a right to your opinion. I agree with some of it, not all. But
there you go. And that's what's great
about Gatlin.
That's what's great about an opinion. You can agree with some and disagree with others.
All right, move on to another, from one outrage culture story to another. What if Caster Semenya had not lost her case at the Court of Arbitration of Sport last spring? Would have been allowed to compete if the IAAF, the World Athletics rules against DSD athletes, would not have gone into effect. I think all of us can agree we would have assumed she would have won another world title. Where would the story be, do we think, if Caster Semenya was still allowed to compete? I can tell you she wouldn't be running the 200 as she's trying to do now, but I'm curious what you think. Where would this controversy be, right? And it's a tough question. There's a lot of facets to it. feel like I'm kind of throwing you a curveball here, but what would be the
Well,
state of the women's middle distances if Caster Semenya was still allowed to compete?
I mean, I think it'd just be the same state as it was while she was competing. There would be, she would be dominating every race and people would be fighting for second. And I do think there would have been a situation where she has a bad day and someone like Audrey Wilson has a great day and she gets upset.
Wow.
I think that would happen. I mean, she's not unbeatable. I mean, she got third in the 1500 in 2016, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
2017, but I think, yeah, I
17,
don't know. Yeah.
17. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But like it's not like she's Superwoman where no matter what happens, she wins. I do think that, great athletes can lose. And I think that would have been a story. There would have been a story. She would have a streak. And I do think in 2019, now 2021, 2022, she would lose one of those. And I think that would be like the big stories like, wow, Caster Semenya goes down. And it would have been a cool moment of like, it would be a cool moment of seeing the end of her dominance and like kind of being kind of like looking at like kind of when Bolt lost. When Bolt lost in 2017, it wasn't like you were like, all right, this is the end of an era, but you kind of appreciated Bolt's era, and you also were kind of appreciate the upsetness of Bolt losing. And I think that would be the same thing in Caster. You appreciate her greatness, and then also appreciate the one person who's able to like knock down the king of the 800 or queen of the 800 in this case. I do think, though, you can go. What were you going to say? And then I'll say what I was going to say.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think we'd have a Halimi Nakai of Uganda being the 800-meter world champion in 2019. I don't think Caster was beatable, at least the way she was running. I mean, she ran that Doha Diamond League before the ban went into effect, and she won by like 3 seconds. So I think we'd still be talking about her as the greatest of all time. But, the thing I wrote about at the World Championships was kind of the juxtaposition of these women in the 800 receiving their reallocated medals, and that was Alicia Montano, Brenda Martinez, and kind of, it felt like the IAAF World Athletics was trying to put, someone like Caster Semenya trying to compete, just trying to be herself, whether you agree with it or not. But it kind of felt like they were like putting it on the same pedestal, like as Russian doping cheats, and not saying that they're going to strip Caster Semenya's medals like they did with Russia, and that's why Martinez and Montano were there. But it just felt unfair to not have her there, and it I don't know. I think track would actually be in a much better space without having to make Caster Semenya a scapegoat. And I understand that she's, physiologically different than track and field, or excuse me, than some other women. But I think it cast a black eye over track and field. And I think the sport would be in a better place with her still in it. Sure. Would it affect the chances of some other getting medals in the 800 and middle distances? Absolutely. But already track had a black eye in it with all these doping, these reallocations, and every day in Doha there was a new ceremony of people getting medals, and that to me, and I wrote about this, that reflects just as bad not on the dopers as it does to world athletics. But I think when you do that and you have a sport that's been tarnished so much, and you kind of have you say, no, this person can't do this, and this person can't compete because the way they were born, and this person, we're gonna not even hide the fact that we're specifically targeting them. I think that's another thing of why, track and field is, for a lot of people, a hard sport to appreciate and a hard sport to respect, because, this is a person that didn't do anything that's not cheating in the traditional sense. And she's been banned by track and field. I guess I don't really know where I'm going with that beyond the fact that I think track and field would be in a better place if Semenya had won that case and she had been allowed to compete. It didn't look good that obviously they put this ban on 400 to 1500 for DSD athletes, but because that was clearly targeting Caster Semenya to get her out of the sport. But I truthfully think we get to experience and see someone dominate, which is always entertaining. And I also think track and field wouldn't have this another black mark again. Another thing that I think in time in history we're going to view as a miscarriage of justice. But that's just my opinion. I know you may have a slightly different one, but
no, I mean I agree that it is better for the sport if she wasn't banned. I just think that if she wasn't banned, it would set up for an opportunity for there to be a David versus Goliath race where she loses. I know she might not have lost in 2019, but like maybe as she got older and loses a step or two, like in 2021 or 2022, that would have been a great moment of like a newcomer coming in or someone who's always gotten second every single year, like an Aji Wilson coming in and finally getting a win over her. Like we gotta admit, like, okay, it's kind of weird now, but like, because the Uganda athlete won. But imagine another what if. Imagine if Ajay Wilson would have won in 2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that Ajay Wilson, in the back of her mind, that win feels a little weird, right? Because there's a completely healthy athlete who's forced to not run, right?
Right.
And so
multiple. We also multiple DSD athletes.
But you put like there is not going to be an asterisk, but in the back of your mind, you're going to put an asterisk in that win. And I think that you don't want to give the competition reasons to have doubt that like, did I truly win this, or did the IAAF World Athletics, help me win this by changing it out?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you're an elite athlete at the world level and you've made it this far, like you're there because you love competition. You're there because you don't cut corners and you don't, win by DQs all the time. You win because you show up to a track, no matter who's on that track, to be the best athlete that day. And I think the mindset of a lot of these runners are like, we're not racing everyone that's the best in the world right now. We're only racing like 75% of the best 8 athletes. There's another 25% that they're not letting race us, And so I think, that's what I think, that those athletes kind of would rather race them. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some athletes who are like, no, I don't like racing someone who beats me by 4 seconds every time. And
I understand that.
I can understand. Yeah, I can understand their viewpoint, and not everyone is going to think the way I think. And I did have a couple conversations with some elite U.S. women 800-meter runners, and some of their viewpoints were very kind of. They said like, yes, it sucks. They're like, it sucks either way. It sucks if she runs and beats us by 4 seconds and we know we can't beat her, but it also sucks if you don't let her run. And it's like it's a lose-lose situation for the competition because, it's like, what is the right answer if you are Ajay Wilson? Is the right answer you want to race Caster, or is the right answer you want to win without her there? It's weird. So
another ironic thing about the Doha World Championships, and it was, the first one Caster was not allowed to be at. She was one of the athletes who was supposed to be at these medal reallocation ceremonies. I forget which year it would have been for her, if it was 2011 or 13. But she, like Martinez and Montano, was set to get a medal upgraded, I believe, to gold, but she didn't show up to that. Just again shows you the how she's been branded by World Athletics. I just think they've mishandled all of that, and again, history will not look kindly on them. But yeah, of course, the ultimate what if on the track is that we would probably not have a Halima Nakai as the world champion. I don't think it would be a situation where the world record is faster, because we've seen that Semenya is basically a machine when it comes to running 154, 155. But I just think the sport's been robbed of one of its greats. So anyways, that one's super controversial. Move on. Here's a more fun one. What if Kenenisa Bekele this past September had broken Kipchoge's world record in Berlin? He was only 2 seconds away. How would we view each athlete differently?
We
I
would.
think if I yeah, I think I can say we would
You go
still view
first.
Kipchoge. Yeah, we would still view Kipchoge as the best of all time. Obviously, he followed up a month later, not even a month later, a few weeks later, and ran 1:59:40 in an exhibition. But there would be, speaking of asterisk, there'd be a little caveat, I think, in any blurb you write about Kipchoge, in being that he's the greatest of all time, he's the fastest man ever. Of course, in real record terms and legal record terms, Kenenisa Bekele is the world record holder. So that's how there'd have to be additional addendums in everything written about it. Any article story about Kipchoge, you would find a mention of Kenenisa Bekele, I think, as the world record holder. So he would be floating much closer to the orbit of Eliud Kipchoge if he had broken that record. I wondered if the shoe takes would be even hotter at that point. They were already pretty scorching hot at the time track stopped in the wake of Nike releasing the Alpha Fly and Kosgei smashing the women's world record. But I wonder if that would be a thing mentioned in. It's like, these shoes are so ridiculous that even Kenenisa Bekele, who's clearly inferior to Kipchoge, can break his world record. So I think there would be, the takes in all these scenarios, if they went the other way, the takes would be scorching hot and there would all be these debate. But I do think there would be some level of uncertainty around Kipchoge. He still would be the greatest of all time, but there wouldn't be quite this firm, definitiveness about his absolute greatness if Bekele had run just 3 seconds faster.
Yeah, and I also think if Bekele runs 3 seconds faster in that race, it would make the Breaking 2 event and the Ineos 159 event just feel super, super artificial. Obviously we know that they don't count because there's pacers, but in some way we would just look at those events as just circus acts. Because we'll be like, who cares how fast he runs here? He's not the fastest. You need to run faster on a real course because that's what Bekele did. And I just think it would make these even though we know it's not an official record, when I was watching those two 159 attempts, I was like, he ran 159, right? I didn't put a caveat on it because I was like, I don't care because he's already and the reason why I didn't care is because he was already the fastest without the caveats, right? And so I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt that the caveats don't matter because without him, he still would be the fastest all time. But now, if there was a person who was faster than him with all the regulations in a race, these caveats of pacers, of a perfect flat course, of the perfect weather, all this stuff would be like, oh, maybe that's only why he's fast, and you would you just start questioning his sub 2 attempts, and you start questioning hey, you'd have thoughts of oh, he's going to run 2 of these fake marathons. Why does he just run 2 real marathons and run faster than what Bekele does? I just think there would just be that, like you said, that weird caveat that Bekele always has to be mentioned in every paragraph you write about Kipchoge now.
Yeah.
And Kipchoge still has the resume to say that you're the greatest of all time. No one's going to take that away from him. But it would make these Breaking 2 events feel more fake, even though I don't think they're fake at all because I think he's running 26.2 miles in 2 hours exactly. I don't think, the pacing with the laser pacing is really that big of a difference because, you still have to move your body that distance in that time, no matter how great pacing you have. You still have to do the work yourself. But
I don't know about that.
I do think,
yeah, okay.
I don't know. I just think that you can give me pacers and I'm not going to run faster. You still got to do the work,
I don't know. Let's try it out. I just got a green laser installed in my Volvo. Maybe we'll stick it on 8-minute pace and see how long you can hang. So you're saying people would be yelling at Kipchoge and being like, "You're a fake loser. You can only run 159 in a science experiment. You're not even the world record holder." We'd be like, there'd be no GQ shoots.
Correct.
He would not have 1 million followers on Instagram. He would not look really cool in a robe. And would we be calling him the greatest of all time? I mean, you're just like, these 3 seconds hold a lot of weight for you. He'd be a fraud.
They'd call him. He'd be a fraud.
Speaking of
like
which, another documentary
circus events
to Netflix. Another documentary coming to Netflix. Eliud Kipchoge, the fraud that never was.
But that's what they would do. They're like, "Hey, man, run fast at a race that matters, not these fake circus races that are paid for by Ineos and Nike." I mean, I'm using hyperbolic statements, but I think that there would be an asterisk. The asterisk is already on those 2 races, but that asterisk would be in bold print now as opposed to italic print because of there's another guy out there who literally has the world record. And you can run 159 all you want in Vienna, but you're not the world record holder, right? That's what people would say. So it's like,
that's
cool.
what people would
keep
say.
You keep on bragging about your relay split in the 4x8. Why don't you go out and run an actual open 800 and tell me what you really can run?
Hadn't thought about that in the context of a 4x8. As I think Kevin said this in last week's podcast at some point, he's like, the 3 seconds between the 2 world records is nothing and everything, because it's nothing because it's the difference between, over the course of the race, handling your water bottles more or less efficiently. And it's everything in the sense that Kipchoge's name is, he's still the unquestioned best ever, and he's got all the important records, and he's also run 159. Yeah, you'd have to defend Kipchoge a little more. You couldn't just say he's the best ever, because somebody could easily come in and say, but Kenenisa Bekele's got the marathon world record, and look at what he did on the track. The dude ran 12:37. He ran 26:17. He was a monster on the track in the way that Kipchoge wasn't quite. And he's a faster marathon on a regulation course. We can do fake races all day long. You can be the record holder of running the mile around your couch, and you're not the mile world record holder, in the same way that you're not the marathon world record holder when you get a $1 billion corporation to make you a few lasers and to hand you water and to make, repave a course. I think some of those takes would be wrong, but we would be spinning ourselves in a blender over this over and over and over again. But in this world that we live in now, we can just enjoy Eliud Kipchoge GQ shoots, knowing he's the greatest of all time, and laughing about it, and still kind of wondering when Bekele is ever, if ever, is going to be able to beat him in the marathon. So those 3 seconds, they hold a ton of weight.
And I think it would have made people think, again, imagine this world where Bekele has a world record. I think people would start thinking that maybe it was Eliud Kipchoge's team that started this virus in order to get London canceled, so you didn't have to go up against Bekele to lose. I'm just saying. But what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say.
I was just going to say, I was going to pretend I was going to ignore what you just said, but yeah, go ahead.
But I'm just saying, it would have made the postponement of this London Marathon hit even more, because we would have been itching to actually see them race each other even more. We already are, but if Bekele is the world record holder, that makes that race matchup even more intriguing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, those seconds are very, very important. And yes, I think so. Maybe conspiracy theories, although I'm just going to, again, ignore that. Okay. Another one. It's one I just thought of. I didn't have written down, but what if the widespread sports postponements and, the omnipresence, unfortunately, of the coronavirus, what if that had hit before the U.S. Marathon Olympic trials and we had not yet run the U.S. Olympic trials? I'm thinking multiple scenarios. Would they have moved the race because Atlanta maybe couldn't host it in 2021? How would maybe the team look different? Obviously, that would depend on how and where the race went down. I mean, I'm thinking that Abdi Abdurrahman would have been another year older, would have been further in his mid-40s. How would the trials have looked different if they would not have happened and therefore would have been pushed to early 2021.
Well, I think the first thing I think about is the athletes who had a shot who weren't 100%, right? So you got to assume that Hasay is healthier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to
Yep.
assume that Amy Craig shows up, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that changes up. There's like two new, like a more improved Hasay, a healthier Hasay, and an actual Amy Craig in there. Uh, on the men's side, I don't know how. I mean, you could argue that maybe Career has enough more a year of
Yeah.
more training at the marathon level, so it makes him more prepared. But I don't think. I mean, he still finished in the top 5, so I don't think that Career's finish would have been that different. I do think the women's race would have been a little different with, even you look at someone like Emily Sisson, right? She was we everyone picked her in the top 3, even though she only had one marathon under her belt, right? I think
Yeah.
that you just maybe she's more prepared. I just think the newcomers on the women's side are more prepared. The banged up women are more prepared, and the women who didn't even show up actually show up because they have another year to get healthy. Um, you know, you can't. No one wants to say the result will be different because that's taking something away from the people who finished in the top 3. But I think that even if you run that race a day before or a day after, or it's going to be different. Like marathon
Of
results
course. Of
aren't
course.
going to be the same every single
Yeah.
time. So the top 3 would be different. I wouldn't say who wouldn't be in the top 3, but the top 3 definitely would be different.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't have the Molly Seidel story, but we have a different story of
Yeah.
someone
Of
else who
course.
shows up. It's not like saying to
Yeah.
replace Seidel with Amy Craig. You could replace Seidel with you know, Kellen Taylor, right? And be like, wow, she made her first Olympic team, stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
do think, though, the women's race would be better because the newcomers would be more sharp and the people who are hurt would be healthy. That's what I think.
I think you would see more people in Nike Alpha Flies. I think that's one thing. I think people would have gotten the chance to take home the pair that Nike gave and tested them out and seen the results in practice, as opposed to just getting them the day or 2 days before. So if they would have not had the trials and had to rerun them, and I guess no, they wouldn't have had the chance to get the shoes. So maybe that plan doesn't work. But the shoes would have been out for a little bit, and I think some athletes that were unsponsored and maybe would have been on the fence about wearing them would have decided to wear them. So maybe that changes. I don't think the man up top changes. I think Galen Rupp, regardless of when and where the race is, it probably is the same. You're right that any scenario is going to change the results in order of some senses. My thing is logistically, though, with the course and location have had to change. The original intent of having it in Atlanta and part of the selling point was that the course somewhat mimicked the marathon course in Tokyo. Well, then they moved it to Sapporo, and Sapporo's flat. So would the argument have been, we need to change the course and we need to put it in a place that more closely mimics what they're going to see at the actual Olympic Games. And maybe Atlanta, I'm having to clear my throat, sorry. Maybe Atlanta wouldn't have wanted to host it at that point. So thank goodness that they got the trials in before basically later when everything started to be postponed and we really realized as a country the threat of the coronavirus, because I don't know, I doubt Abdi would have been able to hang on for another another training. The guy's unbreakable, so who
80.
knows, maybe he would have, but I think it changes the team significantly, and it just throws a massive logistical wrench in it. You'd have to be talking about putting in a new location, and there'd be arguments for that. It would have been a headache. So I think thank goodness that they got that race in, even if it means that the team who qualified it was 18 months ahead of when the actual race that they qualified for will take place. I don't care. It was a massive headache avoided by the fact that you got that race in. So we dodged one bullet there.
Yeah. I don't think they would have changed the location. I think they would have kept it. I think the statement of like, ooh, the reason for Atlanta is because it mimics Tokyo. But I
That was just
also
one of the
think
selling
that,
points. Yeah, that was just
yeah,
one of the selling
I
points.
think that's selling. I don't think they're gonna. Hey, we're going to here now because of that one bullet point that was in their presentation document that they pitched. They're going to be like, okay, well, we're still giving you money to host it. We're still putting up the hotels. We're still doing all this. Like, that's actually the more important part, is the financial backing of Atlanta more than and the infrastructure of Atlanta more than it mimics the course. So.
Hmm. All right, I have one final one, and I don't know if this is my best one, but it just feels, I don't know, feels like the way to go. What if Mo Farah didn't go to the marathon after 2017, still on the track? I realize, again, he would have only had one World Championships. Would he have swept the 5K and the 10K in 2019? What are your thoughts there?
I think he would have had some L's. He would have taken some L's. I think he would have. I think he would have lost both the 5 and the 10. I mean, you saw that he was losing a bit of step. I mean, he didn't. He lost the 5K Diamond League, right?
Well, I mean, most importantly, he lost to Idris in the 2017 World Championships in the 5,000. Now, it was very close, but you think he would have taken his licks in the Diamond League and whatnot, and then maybe would have been like, "Oh crap, I need to retire," or did he make the right decision going to the marathon?
Well, it's just like he was living off of his final 400, right? And he just. There had yet to be another person who could match his 400 speed, at the end of a 10K, at the end of a 5K. He, obviously, the tactician of him, of being in position, wasn't ever going to change. Like, you don't lose. The same with Centro. Centro is always going to be in the right position. But it's all about, like, is he every year in and year out, the best man in the world in the final 400? And eventually, you lose a little bit over time with age, and people get better and better as they move up in age and move up in experience. And I think 2017 was like that moment where the competition, where he was coming down and the competition started coming up. And so he'd be here in the 2018 and 2019 seasons. And sure, there might be a situation where he could beat him, but I do think that he would have taken 2 L's in 2019. And, I think he went to the marathon because he timed it for a reason. Because he was like,
he was scared of that Joshua Chepta guy.
I don't think he was scared. I think he was kind of like, hey man, I have all these wins. Why go out with a bunch of like silvers, bronze, and fourths when you can go out with like, potentially 2 golds? I mean, that's not how he went out, but he wouldn't go into 2019 being like, hey, I'm going to add 2 golds. He'd be going to 2019 and be like, hey, maybe I'll get 1 medal. I don't know. Like, it's just people are bad.
I think he would have swept both in 2019. I'm of that opinion. I don't think it was because he was getting older in 2017 that he lost the 5,000. I think he just legitimately it was always close. Even when he was dominating the last 400, it was always close when he was winning his races because they were tactical. And he just got beat by Idris. I think he made a mistake by going to the marathon. Obviously, he thinks that as well because he's coming back to the track. I think he would have continued to been the Mo Farah of old and swept in Doha. He showed he could win a somewhat moderately paced, pretty quick 10,000 when it was a sub 27 race in London, and I think he would have come back because we saw in 2018. He won the Chicago Marathon. The guy's still very, very fit, and he's had a couple tough marathons. It may just ultimately not be his best race.
So you think he would have swept?
I think he would have. Yes, I think he would have. I truthfully believe that. I think his presence, even though people would have seen some kink in the armor, chink in the armor, whatever you want to kink in the armor. I don't know what the term is. They would have seen that in London. I think he would have come back, and I still think he holds that psychological advantage even over these newer guys like Chepta guy and even Idris who had beaten him. He's intimidating, and I think he would have found a way to still win. And I still think he's the guy to beat, even over Chepta guy, even though he's going to be 38. I still think Mo Farah is the man going into the 2021 Olympics in the 10,000. I truthfully believe that. I know that's a take that some people aren't ready for. My son wasn't even ready for that, and he just walked into the in here while we were recording and just flushed the toilet. So I mean, he's
Yeah,
just like that take. That take is
that's a
so
shit
bad
take.
that I'm putting it down the toilet. So hey, I had to
Wait,
save
so
some of that
you're
fire
saying this
for
right
the
now
end.
that Mo Farah is the 2021 10K favorite?
That's my opinion. Yes, that's what I think. I think the man is still that good. I think he's still fast. He was a late bloomer, and I think he holds that psychological advantage. And Chep, the guy's not ready for that smoke.
38-year-old Mo Farah, who hasn't won a race since
Tom
2017.
18. He won the marathon. Can I mention two words here? Tom
Well, a track race.
Brady. Tom Brady, still in many people's eyes, the best quarterback in the world. 42 years old. He's 5 years older than Mo Farah. I think. Listen, Farah was seriously considering, at least that's the way he made it seem. Maybe it was a prank. Coming back in 2019, I think you have to be self-aware and know that you would have had a shot to even consider that. I think he made a mistake by not doing it. I think he would have won. I think he would have won the 5,000 as well. And now he's getting a little older, and he's just going to focus on the 10 because he's been doing some marathon training. But I think that's how good the guy is. Let's not, just because he got beat by Idris, let's not forget how good he was for so many years. Like,
yeah, he was good for so many years.
He weathered a lot of really good guys and basically put them in the can, and
it's just he's not in his prime right now. He's not in his prime. I mean,
listen, I'm not in Ethiopia watching the man train. I don't know that. I don't know that he's not in his prime. Just because he went to the marathon, and I think you stick to the track until absolutely you get kicked out. I don't like the idea that that I didn't like when Bernard Lagat, even being 40-something years old, quit the track to focus on the marathon. You still won the Olympic trials in 2016 and was like top 5 in the Olympics. I don't care what your age is. And I think the same was for Mo Farah. I know the plan after 2017 was to go to the marathon, but just because most people do that after the track doesn't mean it's good for everyone. And I think it was a mistake for him because I think he was still the best in. I understand the cash. I get the cash. I get it. I understand. But if you're talking about golds, which what matters to these greats who don't need the extra money, I don't know. Maybe they want a new sailboat, so they do need the money. I don't know, but I think it's a mistake for just everyone to assume that leaving I'm boring you with this take. The best decision for everyone is to go to the marathon. I don't think that's in the way. And I still think the man in 2021 is the favorite. Watch out. And then he's going to come home to Eugene, his former home of Portland / Eugene, and get that gold in 2022 at age 30. No, I don't know if that's going to happen. I admit this is a little bit of a hot take.
You think he's going to win Olympic gold? You think he's going to win Olympic gold, though, right? In the 10K?
Yes.
Is he going to run the 5?
No, probably not.
Just do the 10.
Yeah, just do the 10. Let's take it easy on some of these young guys, I don't know.
Just do the 10.
Yeah.
Does he have the standard? Doesn't he get the standard?
Well, so he's got to run what, 27, 24? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Where's he going to do that?
BU.
BU? Oh, there you go. That's a good point. You got 50 laps at BU track.
Yeah.
So Mo Farah, it's going to prove that he's a Tom Brady of track by showing up at age 38 in Tokyo and smoke some 20-year-olds. That's what you think is going to happen? All right. Mm-hmm. I want to make a bet on this. Can we make a friendly man's wager?
I don't.
I do. Your financial situation will be better by 2021 August, right? You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Your investments will be more sound.
Vested. Sure. We'll put $20 on it. $20. That right. I lose every bet to you. I lose every single bet. So
we'll do a 6-pack. A 6-pack of beer.
There you go. And
I'll give you 2 of the beer so I can drink 4 and you can drink 2 and we can enjoy the beers together.
Drink away my sorrows.
Well, I do not think Mo Farah is going to win or even be the favorite going into Tokyo 2021. But hey,
that's exactly where he wants him. That's exactly where he wants people to think he's not the favorite.
So, do you think the Olympics being in 2021 helps him or hurts him?
helps him.
Take
I'll
your
go that way because
helps
he gets reacquainted with the track.
reacquainted with the track. Okay.
Yeah,
All
there you
right.
go.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a great. This is some great what ifs. We talked about what if Bolt loses to Gatlin. What if Semenya never got banned? What if the marathon trials didn't happen? What
Yep.
if Mo Farah never moves to the marathon? And what if Bekele ran 3
Kirk.
seconds faster?
Yeah.
And what if Van Niekerk never got hurt? A lot of good what ifs. Unfortunately, none of them happened.
No.
So what actually happened is what we're going to respect as the history books will respect. But in the Gordon Mack Lincoln Strike history books, we have that what if chapter where you can read and re-listen to this pod and enjoy our world of what athletics would have been like in these scenarios. Until next time, I'm Gordon.
Yeah.
Email us, your Lincoln, email us, FloTrackPodcast@gmail. Do you have any other great what ifs? Maybe we'll talk about your what ifs. Email the pod, FloTrackPodcast@gmail. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
All right.